pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler. I am your intrepid movie exploring host Chris, and on this episode, it's that time of the month again. No, not that time of the month. It's time for me to review the winner of the movie quote contest. They have made their pick from, I think, July because I took August off. But that's neither here nor there. I'm here to review it. And the winner chose the 1967 classic film, The Graduate, starring Dustin Hoffman and directed by Mike Nichols. And I know what you're thinking. Isn't The Graduate one of the most classic films in all of film history that has been dissected and reviewed by countless brilliant critics? What could this country bumpkin in Charleston, South Carolina have to say about this movie? Well, you're going to have to wait to find out, because first off, I have to do all of that fun podcaster, YouTuber mumbo jumbo. Oh, you know what we have to do. Do I really need to say it? Let me know. Do I even need to say it anymore? Just follow, subscribe, like the show, send comments, get in touch with me on my social media. I would say Instagram's the best way to do it, at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I also have an email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. So you can get in touch with me through that, play the contest that we'll get to shortly, as well as just leave comments, follow, subscribe, share the show on your social media with your family members, even if they happen to be your business partner's son who has been sleeping with your wife. I don't care. I will take any listener I can right now. There, I got through all that quick, fast, in a hurry so we could get into this episode. I hope you're doing well out there, my beloved listener. I do have to get into one thing, as we are talking about a classic movie. No, not an old movie, because it's not an old movie if you haven't seen it. And that is a 100% totally original quote from me, the Cinematic Traveler, and not from the great actress Lauren Bacall. No, don't even look it up on the internet. It's not worth your time. And I'm not really even copying that from another podcaster who we'll get to later. That is a tribute to another podcaster. Oh, I know I'm losing a lot of you right now. It doesn't matter. But before we get into it, I did want to say, like I said, we're talking about classic movies, and we lost one of the icons in Hollywood, one of the legends in Robert Redford this week. 89 years old. And probably up to his death, he could have walked into any bar in America and picked up your girl. But yeah, I hate that he passed away. If you're unfamiliar with his films, shame on you. But I can give you a few I can strongly recommend you watch. Definitely Butch Cassidy and a Sundance Kid. The Sting is another great one. All the President's Men. Sneakers is another good one. I haven't seen that one in a while, but I have always enjoyed that. And I know there's one, The Natural. I love it. I know it's cheesy and schmaltzy and corny, but God, I love that movie. It's about baseball back in the 40s, and I don't know. It's a good one. It kind of gives you goosebumps at points. And yeah, Robert Redford was just the coolest. So definitely go check out a few of his movies to pay honor to, like I said, one of the icons, legends of Hollywood. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and talk about The Graduate.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
As I mentioned, this did come out in 1967 and was directed by Mike Nichols. This is actually only his second movie that he directed. He was coming from a stage background as a director, so yeah, he did this movie, and guess what? He won the Best Director Oscar for this film. So, hey, way to start out strong there, Mike. This is also Dustin Hoffman's feature film debut. So there's a lot of really cool things that we'll get to later about cast and stuff like that. Like I said, with these older movies, I'm not going to do kind of a retrospective or, big trivia things. I'm just going to review the movie, and I might bring up a few things that I read or watched along the way to kind of get you excited for the movie. Also, to get you excited for this podcast, and I do have to over-explain, I am going to be giving you a movie quote contest. Now, the review I'm going to give you, usually I don't have spoilers, but as this movie did come out in 1967, and it's one of the most popular movies ever, I feel it's okay to have a few spoilers along the way. But in my plot synopsis for the film, I am going to hide a movie quote from another movie that either shares some DNA with this film or maybe runs a little parallel to it. If you recognize the quote, get in touch with me through the various means that I have given you earlier in the show, and I will give you a point if you get it right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points. Whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. Oh my God, how exciting. How exciting is that? I hear you now. Are you trying to seduce me, Cinematic Traveler? Why, yes. Yes, I am. So play along. It's fun. I know it seems a little uncool, but that's the best time of the week to be uncool with Chris. So we open The Graduate with Ben, played by Dustin Hoffman, who has just graduated from college and is on his way back to his parents' house in California. After receiving a hero's welcome, Ben is quickly seduced by Mrs. Robinson, played by Mrs. Mel Brooks, and Bancroft, who is the wife of his dad's business partner. I would say that's a tad bit awkward as these two start off on this torrid affair, while Ben struggles with really what to do with his life after his graduation from college. See, kids, it's not just you nowadays. There's been a long history of people graduating from high school or college and not having a clue what to do with their life. So he is just sort of drifting along. Well, Ben's parents are getting a little frustrated with him, and eventually they force him to go on a date with Elaine, played by Catherine Ross. And Ben, he just does not want to go. In fact, he tries to make it the worst date in the history of worst dates. But it turns out, surprisingly to him, that he has developed some feelings for Elaine. And the pair start to date on the regular. However, there is one big catch to this budding relationship. Elaine is actually Mrs. Robinson's daughter. And I know I hear a lot of you high-fiving Ben for what he has done with Mrs. Robinson and Elaine. I would say that doesn't surprise me because most of the Bens I have ever met in my life are slimy, weaselly little bastards that deserve a punch in the face. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going right now with this plot synopsis. So once Mrs. Robinson finds out about Ben's feelings for his daughter, well, you know the old adage, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And eventually all is revealed to Elaine, who just can't handle it. Naturally, it tells Ben to hit the bricks, but he's not going to give up easy. And he starts to try to chase after Elaine and get her to love him again. But Elaine isn't having any of it, even going so far as to be having a wedding soon, which Ben races across town to reach, but he has to stop along the way and ask a helpful gas station attendant for directions. Now, this gas station attendant says something like, Gordon Street? Ah, yes, Gordon Street. I once knew a girl who lived on Gordon Street. Long time ago when I was a young man. Not a day passes I don't think of her and the promise that I made, which I will always keep. That one perfect day on Gordon Street. That's 5 blocks up and 2 over. Hint, hint. That's a tough one. I'll be impressed if you all get that one. Well, will Ben make it to the church in time and stop this wedding and win Elaine's heart? Or is he destined to be alone forever, sitting at the bottom of a pool, dressed in full scuba gear, holding a spear gun? And this is normally where I say I'm not going to spoil that, but probably in this review I will. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on into the review. And I'll be honest, this is probably going to be very brief because, as I mentioned earlier, it's The Graduate. I think every film buff and film critic has talked about this movie, so I don't really know what the hell I'm going to add to this film. Oh, my God. I don't really have a big history with it. I've seen bits and pieces of it through the years. This is the first time I've actually sat down and watched the whole thing. I mean, we all know the classic bits that I'll get to later, but it always fell into that category of, oh my God, it's an old movie. Yeah, that's right, Frank, it's an old movie. Oh, and I forgot, Frank, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell everyone that the person who chose this movie is our friend Frank from Reels of Cinema, another amazing podcast where he talks about classic movies. And he does an amazing job, much better than this country bumpkin. So definitely go check out his podcast. And in a little surprise, he is going to be coming on to our next episode with this show to talk about the latest Leonardo DiCaprio movie. We're going to review that together. So this kind of leads right into that episode. So I thought that'd be a cool little way to tie things together. So yeah, Frank, I'm sorry I didn't mention you again. Again, it's Reels of Cinema. Go check out his podcast. I'll say it 12 more times before we get to the end of this episode. But I was a bit excited to actually sit down and watch this movie as, again, it has this amazing reputation, and I wanted to see if it lived up to that reputation. And like I said, I'm not going to give you a retrospective. I'll talk about a few things I found out that were pretty cool. And I know I'm really over-explaining this, so let's go ahead and get on with it. We'll talk about the good of The Graduate.
Sounds pleasant.
I'll go ahead and let's start with the cast. Of course, as I mentioned, this is Dustin Hoffman's feature film debut, and to say he knocks it out of the park would be an understatement. He gives a really great performance of this young man graduating from college who has no idea what to do with his life. And Dustin is very talented. God, Dustin Hoffman used to be, for the longest time, I would say through the 60s and 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s, he was one of those actors where you knew if he was in something, he was going to be really great in it. Although, as we have learned, like we always learn as life goes on, not everybody is as worthy of our praise as a human being as they are as what they do in their profession. So we will separate Dustin Hoffman, the man, from Dustin Hoffman, the actor. He's a very talented actor. He does handle the comedic moments very well in this movie, especially early on when Mrs. Robinson does seduce him. And she's very manipulative and very forceful with him. And you can just see that he's inexperienced at this point in his life and doesn't know how to deal with this older woman. He just kind of goes along with it. There's a great moment where he has to get a hotel room for them to begin their affair. And it really does have some laugh out loud moments, especially between him and Buck Henry, who is not only a writer in the movie, but he plays a little bit part as the hotel worker. And Dustin Hoffman's trying to book this room, and he's getting asked these questions, and he doesn't want to tell the guy that, yeah, he's going to take this lady out there and have sex with her and all that stuff. So I can't do it justice, but yeah, it's pretty funny. And again, he had some comedy early on to the plight that he is in, because he has all these people that are so excited for him from graduating college and all this stuff, that he has this whole future ahead of him, and he just doesn't know what the hell he wants to do. But Dustin can also do the drama, which this movie, it's a comedy drama, and it sort of feels like it swings from comedy to drama and then back to comedy a little bit and back to drama. So it's not a very good mix at certain points, not a detriment to the movie, but when it goes drama, it goes drama. And again, Dustin Hoffman, one of the greatest actors ever, he can handle all of that. We'll talk about briefly Anne Bancroft as Mrs. Robinson. I mentioned she is a manipulator. She's got a lot of issues. I give her credit. She knows what she wants, and she goes after that. But she also has her vulnerable side where at this point, I mean, imagine this is 1967, and she sort of gave up her dreams as a young lady to go for the rich guy and have the security of this big house and everything. And she kind of gave up on that part of her life. So she's kind of got that resentment or that pain inside of her. And maybe that's why she does the things that she does. And she also, she has some wicked moments when, like I said, hell hath no fury. Yeah, there's some stuff she does in this movie. I was like, whoa, lady, whoa. That's a bit extreme. And the final participant in our love triangle is Elaine, Mrs. Robinson's daughter, played by Catherine Ross. She does a fine job here. I don't think she has a lot to really work with. She's kind of the love interest, and then she becomes the obsession of Ben, and then finally gives in, and they have that moment at the end that we'll talk about shortly. But she kind of can get caught up in the whirlwind romance, and you see that in her as a young woman. And, Ben's giving her this attention, and it's exciting. But then when she finds out what he's been doing with her mom, I mean, it really crushes her. But I give her credit because she's a strong woman that forces her way away from him and tries to stay away from him until he comes back. And then she kind of falls back into those old ways. Really, the cast top to bottom give excellent performances in whatever part. I did have to laugh because Ben's dad is played by William Daniels, and I couldn't help but think, has this man ever been young? He has always seemed middle-aged to old. For some of us out there, William Daniels, will recognize him as the voice of Kit. He was also, wasn't he one of the doctors on St. Elsewhere? And then I know for a generation of you, Nickelodeon kids. Wasn't he the teacher in Boy Meets World or something like that? But yeah, it was kind of cool to see him as the dad. And then you sort of fall into this thing where if you're a movie fan, you get a lot of, oh, there's that person and there's that person before they were either stars or they were in something maybe you recognized, like Murray Hamilton, who plays Mr. Robinson. Of course, he was the mayor in Jaws. You got a little cameo from Norman Fell. He runs this little, I guess, boarding house or something that Ben stays at. If you know Norman Fell, Mr. Roper from Three's Company, every time he was on screen, I kept waiting for him to kind of break that fourth wall and look at us and give that little stupid grin he always gives. And then you've got some other ones. Richard Dreyfuss appears that we'll get to later. He has a little bit of a part as a very young Richard Dreyfuss. And there are a few other people throughout. So yeah, anyway, cast top to bottom does a really great job. So we'll move into the next positive of the film. And obviously, he won an Oscar for the movie. That's the direction. Mike Nichols, I can't believe this is his second movie. And for a lot of YouTubers out there, they love to criticize some of these studios when they pick up on a director and they're like, oh, they've only done one movie or two movies or whatever. And you just sit there and go, yeah, okay, Mike Nichols, this is his second movie and he won an Oscar for it. I mean, I can go down the list. I mean, Citizen Kane was Orson Welles' first movie. Jaws was Steven Spielberg's technically third movie, second big screen movie. I think Star Wars was George Lucas's third movie. So yeah, we could go on and on. Evil Dead 2, those were 1 and 3 in Sam Raimi's filmography. And I hear you out there, how dare you put Sam Raimi in there? Because he is one of the best American directors ever. I will fight you in the street over that. But let's go back to Mike Nichols. I really enjoyed the technical side of this movie. It was a lot more intriguing than I was expecting it to be. In all these years, I haven't really seen this movie straight through, and I kind of had the movie in my head and what I thought it was going to be. And really early on, there's some tricks with the camera that he uses. There's this welcome home party where Ben just wants to be alone and get away from everybody. But every time he's in the party, the camera is just tight close-ups on him and then people walking in and out of frame. And it's very claustrophobic. And you feel that for Ben. You're like, God, I would want to get out of that room. And it plays very well at the beginning of the movie into his emotions. There's also this really cool trick he does where as Ben is having this affair with Mrs. Robinson and he's kind of just aimlessly drifting along and the days are kind of running into each other. Well, as Ben moves from one room to another room, like he'll leave his bedroom through the door and then it shows him walking into the hotel room with Mrs. Robinson. And then he'll finish with Mrs. Robinson and walk out another door and he's walking to the family pool to go swimming. And it's really cool way to, again, show passage of time, but also just show the monotony of his life and just how he is floating through it and not really achieving anything that you're expected to at this point in your life. But also he doesn't know what to do with this point of his life until he meets Elaine. So again, another really cool trick that I was not expecting. I also enjoyed this weird thing he does with the sound. Like someone will be behind a door and it'll be completely silent. Like the whole movie will just be silent until that door opens up. And then you hear all of this conversation or laughter or whatever's behind the door coming onto the movie. That was a really cool effect, kind of show going from this loneliness or isolation to now you're having to deal with all of this chaos coming at you. And then there's some stuff with imagery of water and the pool and him floating to the bottom of the pool or just drifting along in it. And he's got this aquarium that's just kind of plays into the overall feeling that Ben is having at this moment in his life, that he doesn't know where he's going. He's just moving along in this process. And you know, this is an iconic movie, so you're going to have iconic shots. You've got naturally the famous shot from behind Mrs. Robinson's legs as Ben says, you're seducing me, Mrs. Robinson. You've got the banging on the glass at the church at the wedding, screaming her name, Elaine, Elaine. That's been copied, I don't know how many times. I know Wayne's World 2 did it. One of my favorites is from the music video for Our Love's in Jeopardy by the Greg Kihn Band. Anybody remember that one? Yeah, the end of that movie is the same sort of thing. I don't know, did he bang on the window? I know they run out of the church like they do in this movie. And you also get a couple really shots. I don't know if this one's iconic, but I love this shot where Ben finally tracks down Elaine and he's trying to win her over and he follows her to the zoo where she's meeting another guy and he finally sees her with this guy and he just kind of, the camera's behind him, and you see Dustin Hoffman just kind of his shoulders shrink down and everything. And I was just like, I could relate to that. If you've ever had feelings for someone or a crush, or you dated someone and then you finally see him with someone else, it feels like somebody ripped your heart out. Like Ralph in The Simpsons, when Bart shows Lisa, this is the exact moment you broke Ralph's heart. But yeah, you feel like that. So I got that. And then the other scene that I think is the most powerful in really the whole movie is after they have this exciting moment between Elaine and Ben, where he comes to the church and she rushes to him and they run out of the church where everybody's mad at him, like, no, you can't do that. And they jump on this bus and they run to the back of the bus and they're all happy and excited. And then the camera just kind of lingers on them as their smiles start to fade, because they're like, okay, was this a mistake? What have we done here? And you could just tell the reality of what they have done starts to set in and where they're at. And of course that wraps the whole movie together, because and another thing they do in the movie is they have songs by Simon and Garfunkel, which at this point in music history, maybe we should say Simon with a little bit of Garfunkel. That's a music joke for you all out there. But yeah, the start of the movie starts with "Hello, Darkness, my old friend," and then the end of the movie goes right back to that song. So all in all, direction, editing, pacing, this movie is an hour and 40-something minutes. I'm telling you, I have seen over the last few weeks at the movie theater, I've been doing this classic movie stuff, and then this movie, let's see, this one's an hour and 40-something. Citizen Kane, I went and saw that the other night. It was just under 2 hours. I saw John Carpenter's The Thing. It was about an hour and 40-something minutes. I saw Seven, and that was a little over 2 hours. And Jaws was right at 2 hours. So for all of you filmmakers out there making 3.5 hour long movies, you can make great, iconic films 2 hours or less. You can do it. It's been done by much better people than you if it takes you 3 hours to tell a story that doesn't need to be. But overall, as far as just a complete package for the film, we'll get into some negatives here in a minute. But yeah, the acting and the direction all work well together. There are some very, very funny moments. There's some very powerful drama as well. And I have a theory. That relates this movie to Jaws. As I mentioned, you have Murray Hamilton as Mr. Robinson, who finds out that his wife was cheating with Ben. And he tells Ben that he's going to have to get a divorce now. Now, stay with me here. In my theory, or my fan fiction, whatever you want to say, my weird brain, I like to think that Mr. Robinson moved across the country, get away from California as far as he could, and he ended up at Amity Island, where he changed his name and became mayor. Now stick with me with this one. At the same time, there's a young student at Berkeley in California, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who has a brief cameo, as I mentioned earlier. I like to believe that that's Matt Hooper, and he has taken some marine biology classes at Berkeley or wherever. And eventually he makes his way to Amity Island, and we have Jaws. Boom there. What an amazing theory. Aren't you glad you have listened to this episode that I said was going to be short, but I have dragged on and on and on? Aren't you glad you listened to all that just to hear my Jaws theory? Now, having gotten that out of my system, let's go ahead and move into the negatives of The Graduate.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And this won't take long. My first negative, I mentioned a positive, was the use of music in this film by Simon and Garfunkel. Well, if you don't like Simon and Garfunkel, guess what? You're not going to like some parts of this movie, because you get a lot of Simon and Garfunkel in this film. That's not really a big negative. I'm just playing. Really, my only negative for this movie is just, as I mentioned earlier, the way it's aged over the years, particularly Ben when he turns into a stalker. I swear, if you turn this movie on at the wrong time, you probably think you're watching a serial killer movie, because he's following Elaine around and he's hiding in restaurants and chasing after a bus that she's on, going to her school and following her around and, tracking her down on this date and everything. So yeah, that in today's world, well, back then maybe that was romantic and that's what a man should do, chase after what you want, and you hear that all the time. If you love someone, you'll chase after them. Well, there is sort of a line, a legal line, as a matter of fact, that you really shouldn't cross, and stalking is one of them. So really, that's the only part of the movie where I was like, ooh, that feels really off. And then there's some other stuff with Mrs. Robinson and what she says happened to her with Ben that comes off a little uncomfortable in, say, today's viewing that you should be warned about. But you're right. Again, that's the only negative I have for this movie is just that, yeah, it came out in 1967, so things were viewed a little bit different back then. Overall, my final verdict for The Graduate, like it all depends on what I say right now. What does Chris with the Cinematic Traveler Pod say about The Graduate? Should we cherish it like we have since 1967, or will he say it's terrible? We should never speak its name again. Oh, all of us podcasters, we have such egos. Like, we think that you really care what we have to say. Oh my God. What I have to say about it is it's The Graduate. Go watch it. All right. You get great performances. You see one of the best American actors in cinema with Dustin Hoffman in his first film, and one of the most famous directors, Mike Nichols, in his second movie. So you get to see all of these really cool elements come together. It's got some funny moments. Like I said, the first third of this movie is really funny, and I had a good time with that. It does steer into some things that are awkward or uncomfortable, especially for some of you younger people who grew up at a different time than some of us did here. But yeah, overall, it's a great experience, and I would recommend watching it when you get the chance. And then you could tell everybody how smart you are because you watched The Graduate. And that wraps up this episode. If you're still with me, I must have done something right. And I didn't mean to lie to you. I really thought this was going to be a very short episode because I was like, what am I going to say about The Graduate? Apparently, I had a lot to say. So if you're still with me, then I must have done something right. So again, please like, subscribe, follow, share the show with your friends, family, on social media, whatever you could do to help me. I would greatly appreciate it. Leave a review. I haven't gotten one of those in a long time. That'd be wonderful. And I want to thank Frank from Reels of Cinema once again for participating in the movie quote contest and choosing The Graduate for me to review. It was a lot of fun. And I really look forward to our upcoming episode where he's going to come on this show and we're going to review, I can't remember that, something Small Battles or something with Leonardo DiCaprio. Hopefully we'll finally get a good movie. But that'll be a lot of fun because me and Frank, we just love to talk about movies. It could be a 12-hour episode. Y'all could be in some serious trouble if you think I rambled on now. But you got to come back and listen because Frank is really smart about movies. You'll be impressed and you'll be like, why do I listen to the Cinematic Traveler when I should be listening to Reels of Cinema? You can do both. You can do both. Anyway, so definitely come back for that. Before I go, I just want to tell everyone out there, I appreciate you listening to the show. I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast or YouTuber universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, as you're traveling around on this blue and green ball bouncing through the cosmos, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out there and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.